What's up? My name's Braden, and I'm an artist. Here we are, part 2 to how to sketch a portrait using the Loomis method. Now, I'll be the first to admit, when you just sketch with charcoal and you don't blend and you don't brush and you don't take care of it and tell it how much you love it, it looks kind of ugly. So, this video is going to be all about taking ugly and making it pretty. I'm going to be taking you through the step-by-step process. It's going to take about 40 minutes or so. In the first video, you might remember that we took the reference photo and I showed you how you could very easily sketch out your Loomis head with your charcoal pencil and then identify the planes of the face. Once the planes of the face were identified, I then showed you how you could sketch in the nose, followed by the eyes, the mouth, and then of course everything else. And then I showed you how you could start to layer in your charcoal and identify that underlying form. This video is going to be similar to that, but it's going to be a little bit more involved. So, what to expect? In this one, I'm going to be taking you through, and I'm going to be taking that same portrait that we sketched in part 1, and I'm going to be showing you step by step how we can use smudgers to blend the charcoal and give us some decent gradation. I'm also going to be showing you how you can use erasers and work with high value retrievals to retrieve those high values and really start to bring out the underlying form of the subject in question. I'm also going to show you how you can use brushwork and really start to blend that charcoal and bring out the gradation across your different values. And then once all that's done, I'm going to show you how you can use hard charcoal for your line work around the eyes and skin wrinkles. It's going to be pretty involved. So, I will say that if you enjoy these tutorials, then I know for a fact that you would enjoy my Skillshare. Skillshare is where I upload all of my premium portrait content. It's where I show you how to draw Loomis heads. It's where I show you how you can very quickly sketch in features once that Loomis head is established. I have entire classes dedicated to just eyes, for example, and eventually noses and mouths and ears and all of the things. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, I got the link to register for my Skillshare in the description of this video. Also, something super exciting, I am now offering one-on-one drawing consultations via Zoom. How that works is it's exclusively through my Patreon. Got the link to that in the description of the video. You just sign up and then you can pick a time slot where I'm available and we can meet each other virtually and I can go over your drawings and tell you what I think about it. I'm super excited for that. All right, before we get going, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and then turn on all those notifications so that you never miss when my latest and greatest videos hit the channel here at Messer Creations. Enough talk, let's hit it. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken some soft charcoal and I've grinded it into this candle top lid. And then I've also taken a number 7 smudger and I've taken my razor and I've sharpened it down to a point. And we're gonna do this. This is one of the tricks that lots of charcoal artists use, but I'm going to explain it to you in depth. So what we're doing here is I'm taking my smudger and I'm very lightly blending the charcoal. I'm ever so slightly pushing it into the paper. And this is doing a couple things for us. First, obviously it's blending the charcoal. It's giving us a form of gradation, and it's also pushing the charcoal into the paper. But just like this, so what we want to do, and one of the reasons why we want to use a very light pressure control, is because we want to maintain, to some capacity, the different values that we've already laid down onto the paper with our charcoal pencil. So If you were paying attention in part 1, what I did is I didn't use any soft charcoal and I didn't use any hard charcoal. I only used medium grade charcoal. And one of the reasons why I did that is because medium charcoal is a very nice Goldilocks, right? It has just the right amount of binder infused into it from the factory, and I'm able to spread it, but it also keeps its form somewhat. So it allows me to do things like this, right? I'm taking the charcoal here and I'm blending in that upper lip. And then I'm also blending the beard of the subject. Now, a lot of people might look at this and make, wow, that's way too gritty. And I will admit, it is. But we're not just going to be using the smudger in this video. I'm also going to be showing you how you can retrieve high values with your erasers and how you can blend the charcoal even further and really bring out that gradation with your brushes. So, the biggest thing when encountering this step with your charcoal piece is to remember to go nice and light with your smudger, and that if you need it to be blended even further, you do have your brushes at your disposal, okay? One of the reasons why I opted for a smudger for this step is because I want and need to blend my charcoal, but I also need to maintain as much control of exactly where that charcoal goes as I possibly can. All right, this is one of the biggest differences between using a brush to blend your charcoal versus using a smudger to blend your charcoal. The smudger allows for more control, albeit you cannot move as fast as you can when you are blending with your brush, because the brush, just let's face it, it moves more charcoal much quicker. Where the smudger, being that it's more of a finite point, moves a lot less charcoal, but you're able to really get in there and control exactly what you want your blends to look like, right? How dark do you want that tone to go? Or how light do you want to keep it? A lot of that boils down to the amount of pressure that you use when you push that smudger into the paper, okay? And then here I'm just using my mono zero eraser and I'm just going to clean up this line a little bit here. All right, make it a little bit more crisp. There we are. And this is what we call retrieving our high values. So what I'm doing in effect is I'm taking my mono zero eraser, I'm referring to my reference photo, and I am hitting the paper and erasing or retrieving high values in certain places that I need. Now, this is twofold as well, because what you can do is you can go in and not only can you retrieve high values, but you can also, because of the nature of the charcoal medium, use this eraser to bring out details, right? Such as wrinkles in skin, or you'll see how right here, how I can use the eraser to bring out details in the lips and in the subject's neck, right? And then here as well, you know, this is one of the reasons why I absolutely love charcoal as a medium, because I'm able to go in and I'm able to retrieve high values in certain places. So a lot of the times, younger artists will get bent out of shape, right? Because they think to themselves, oh man, I have to have this picture perfect the first time I lay it down. The beautiful thing with charcoal is no, you do not. You know, charcoal allows for a lot of recourse in the sense of retrieving high values, building up your tones, bringing out the details, right? And once you get good enough, you can actually go in and modify the perspective of certain features of the face. But what I'm doing here is I'm just referring to the reference photo, and I'm using a very light pressure control, and I'm pulling my smudger across the paper in the direction that my subject's underlying form is, right? So like right here, I want to pull this charcoal up, just like this. I want to solidify the brow, right? And then I'm going to pull this over. When we look at the reference photo, it's no question that our darkest values on this reference are going to be in the eye sockets, as with most reference photos when you are drawing portraits. Just the nature of the human skull. It's the way that light tends to cast over the top of a human face. But then right here, I'm just pulling from left to right. I want to kind of blend that eyelid. And then underneath the eye as well. And notice that this is the magical thing about charcoal, guys, is the more you work it, the more that charcoal blends, and that grittiness, that ugly grittiness, as I like to call it, it dissipates. It disappears, right? Slowly but surely. A lot of times when it comes to these step-by-step drawing tutorials, I have to draw extremely quickly so that I can kind of crunch it all into something that's somewhat digestible. So I tend to not take my time and really treat it with love and affection like I would for, say, for example, if it was a commission piece. But as long as you get the general idea of what it is that I'm trying to accomplish and exactly how you go about accomplishing that, that is really my aim for these tutorials. I will say that if you really enjoy this tutorial, I do have a lot of other step-by-step drawing tutorials where I talk about and teach perspective. I teach the Loomis method, and I'm actually in the process of creating a lot more classes such as this, only they're going to be a lot slower. They're going to be broken down into digestible lessons. And at the end of it all, you can upload a project, and I can speak to it and talk to you about it, tell you what I think. Skillshare is a pretty cool platform. All right. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to take my Mono Zero eraser, and I'm just retrieving these high values here. And this also is another point that I want to touch on for retrieving high values. It is imperative, especially if you want to blend charcoal using these types of techniques, that when you initially lay down your charcoal, say for example in part 1 when we were drawing out the Loomis head, and then we were starting to identify the planes of the face and started to lay down the foundation for those features, that you use a light pressure control in that step. So fast forward 10 steps into the future, when we're here, we can very easily hit that charcoal with an eraser and it'll retrieve it, right? It'll lift that charcoal right off of the paper, and we won't have a value that we don't want, right? Because here's the thing, whenever you use a hard pressure control, you're really, pushing hard, whether it's with a pencil, a smudger, or even a brush in some cases. What you're doing is you're pushing those charcoal bits, those charcoal particles, you're pushing them into the paper. Because most all paper, regardless of weight or grade, is porous to some capacity. Kind of like your skin, if you want to think of it that way. From far away, it looks baby smooth, but you zoom up on it and it's very porous. So the nature of the medium, when you use that pressure, it pushes it into the paper, and that'll solidify blends and gradation. So it's important that you keep that in the back of your mind so that you don't back yourself into a corner when it comes to getting the effect that you want. But then just like this, we're just going to kind of blend this a little bit. Nice and light. We just want to pull it. We want to pull it from right to left is the way that I like to work with most eye sockets with blenders. But here we still have a little bit of the framework left. These are our anchor points from when we actually sketched in the eyes in part 1. So I'm just going to hit those and kind of take those away. because now we pretty much can see the framework, right? We can see what we're working with the charcoal, and we can take our smudger just like this, nice and light, and just go over it again and again and again. The direction that you push or that you pull with your smudger is very important, okay? And the cool thing about it is if you are just conscious of exactly where you're pulling, which direction the face, that underlying form is flowing, that will also help you build up necessary muscle memory for your future portrait drawings. Like this, for example, I'm pulling down and over, right? I'm pulling away from the eye, and then I'm pulling down over the edge of the cheek. If you look closely, you can actually still see that line from the Loomis head where I identified the plane of the subject's cheek, right? We're pulling our smudger and we're blending over that. And even if it still looks gritty, don't worry, because you'll see as we continue to move along with our brushes, we're going to be able to really blend that charcoal even further, make it nice and smooth, just like skin, and it'll definitely be what you want. Okay, so right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my smudger. I'm just going to blend this. I'm just going to blend it. Not too hard. Let the tools do the work for you. They want to. They're eager. They're eager to please. Okay? Biggest thing when it comes to drawing is just be gentle with it, right? Be gentle with your drawing. You don't need to talk to your drawing, but, I mean, if you want to, you can. Just a nice light hand. That's the big thing. Let's be nice and gentle. And your drawing will thank you for it. Just nice and refined. Just use that refinement. That's really the big thing. And as you can see, I'm going through and I'm lifting any of that charcoal that needs to be lifted. And then here, just real light, I'm just going to take my brush and I'm just going to kind of blend this. This is more or less just to kind of get all that eraser gunk from when I was retrieving my high values off the paper, right? Okay, so now we're going to use a hard charcoal. All right, this is for the details. One of the reasons why I like to use a hard charcoal for this step is because the hard charcoal has the most amount of binder out of the three, meaning that it throws actually a slightly higher value, because there's actually just as much, if not more, binder infused in the charcoal than there actually is charcoal. And so because of that, we have extremely strong tips, which makes them perfect for going in, such as this. And you can put in moles, you can put in heavier wrinkles in the skin, you can put in defined lines for the bottom of the eyelids or the top of the eyelids if you want. There's no limit to what you can and cannot do with hard charcoal. Only think of your hard charcoal, if you want to use it in this way, as your detail charcoal, right? Kind of like how your Mono Zero eraser, it's got a really fine point and it's your detail eraser, right? Kind of like that. Soft charcoal is meant to be a base charcoal. It's meant to spread and get the foundations of your charcoal piece ready to rock and roll. And then medium charcoal is for solidifying implied lines. You can even implement defined lines, if you will. And then hard charcoal is this right here. I'm just going to pull this right here. Just like that. And just let it fade. Let it fade. That is the bottom of the eye. And then what I'm going to do actually is I think I'm just going to start from the corner here. So when I look at the reference photo, it is slightly heavier. Something just like that. Just like that. Okay. But you see why we use the hard charcoal for our detail work. If I would have tried that with a medium charcoal, I'm not saying that I couldn't have done it, but what you would have realized is that the medium charcoal would have been a lot heavier of a line, and it would have been a lot darker. Pull this up and over. There we go. Wonderful. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'll go over line definitions real quick. Line quality is pretty much what I was just talking about. It is the thickness or the thinness of a line. So line weight has a correlation to line quality, and what that is the strength of a line or how dark or light it appears, right? So a hard charcoal, like what I was just discussing, hard charcoal has a lighter weight, right? It has a thinner quality. Medium charcoal tends to have a darker weight and a thicker quality because there is less binder, so that means there's more charcoal in the ratio to binder in the pencil, and because of that, when you hit it on the paper, more charcoal falls onto the paper, right? So it is a subtle difference, but when it comes to details and drawing, it is also a big difference. Now, I'm just going through here and I'm just adding in some more detail on the top of the eyelid. You can get carried away with detail work if you want. Lots of charcoal artists, especially ones that specialize in portraiture, will spend hours, days worth of time perfecting their charcoal pieces for their clients. This drawing here, like I was mentioning earlier, I'm going at 150 miles an hour. I'm showing you the basics of things. I'm explaining the principles of how you accomplish certain looks onto the paper. I mean, I would love to sit here and have this be a 6-hour-long video, but that probably wouldn't be. It's not realistic, right? Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to go in and notice, look at the reference photo, right? Look at the reference photo. What I want to do is I want to identify any areas where I can just bring out those mid-tones, right? Those high to mid-tones, because I already pretty much have the type of low value that I want in those eye sockets. And then here what I can do is same idea with the smudger. When you are retrieving high values and you are doing longer pulls, make sure you are pulling that eraser in the same general direction as your underlying form, because by doing that, what's going to happen is that underlying form, it's going to pop, it's going to come to the surface, you're going to see it. Versus if you just kind of disregard underlying form and you're not paying attention to the way that you're pulling those strokes, whether they be with the smudger or they be with the eraser, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, to be frank. Your drawing isn't going to look as accurate to the reference photo as you would like if you're not paying close attention to that underlying form and exactly how you are conveying it with your tools. But then here what I'm doing is I'm just kind of cleaning this up a little bit, right around here. But there's no limit to what you can do when it comes to this method. There's absolutely no limit at all. You are your only limitation. Just have fun with it. That's the biggest thing. That's what I've always preached, is if you're just having fun, the rest will follow. Nobody likes to do things that are unenjoyable, right? And why do anything if you can't at least make it fun? And here I'm just kind of pulling this down. I'm trying to bring out the kind of the structure of that nose, right? Bring out some dimension, kind of let that form show through. All right, so now I'm going to take my brush. I'm just going to kind of blend this real quick. So this, like I said, this is more to get that eraser gunk out of there after all those high value retrievals. Okay. And then here, right here, I just want to, there's some more detail that I could bring out. And then here I got some wrinkles right under the eye that I want to make a little bit more prominent, right? And right here, it's important. Don't push too hard, right? Just nice and light. I don't want a defined line, right? I want an implied line. Now, I don't think I went over those, but a defined line is pretty much when you pull a line or you push a line without any break, right? It's very blatant. It's a line. Implied lines are basically contrast, right? Contrast between typically a higher value and a lower value. So like if you actually look at the subject's hat, that the bottom of it where it meets the skin, that's more of an implied line. It's not so harsh, it's not so sharp. So now in here what I'm doing is I'm just very lightly going through and I'm bringing out some of the details in the subject's lip here. I'm just doing nice, quick, little pulls. And notice how those lines that I'm pulling with the hard charcoal are actually sharing space right next to the high value retrievals that I retrieved with my Mono Zero eraser. That is how we bring out contrast, especially when we're dealing with the monochromatic scale of black and white, right? And then here I'm just kind of adding some body to the subject's mustache here, giving it a little bit more character. And this right here is one of the really fun things, I think, about charcoal, is that you layer it, right? Just layer after layer after layer. You can add this detail, that detail. You can retrieve this high value, and then you can lower this value over here, and you can do all of these things, and your drawing just gets better and better. It's not like it's a quick one and done sketch, which is why I like to teach the 3-layered method, because it is very much new age. Like I said, it's nothing that has ever been taught before. It's actually something that I devised myself because I discovered that that's just how I draw. And so I threw artistic definitions at it and I structured it so that I could teach it to people. And right here, you can just kind of go through and continue to build up these lower values here if you want. Again, nice and light. We're not pushing very hard at all. In most things, especially when it comes to sketching and drawing with charcoal, always use a light hand. When in doubt, use a light hand. The only time that you ever really want to use significant amounts of pressure is if you're really trying to work on a hard texture or if you're doing certain defined lines. But even then, you don't want to push too hard because, depending on how big your tip is, you could snap that thing right in half. So just be careful. And then right here, I'm just going to pull this line, just like that. I don't want it to be too abrupt, right? I don't want it to be too apparent, but it definitely needs to be there. Something just like that. Okay. All right, so now back to the smudger, all right? I got some grittiness here that I kind of want to do away with. So I want to blend the charcoal here. Nice and light. I want to kind of bring out some more of this underlying form here. So, and when I'm looking at it, the subject has a very unique beard. And so I want to bring that out, right? I want to showcase the reference's features, because that is what a viewer would use to identify the individual. So I'm just taking some soft charcoal here. I'm rolling my smudger into it, and now what I have is I have a buildup of soft charcoal on the tip of my smudger, which in turn is going to allow me to move a lot more charcoal very quickly and convey a lower value onto the paper, right? And the cool thing is, because I have excess of charcoal on my smudger tip, I still don't have to use a lot of pressure. Just can kind of go in like this. I can blend his beard, and I can bring out those different values that we see in his beard. I can just kind of pull down from the hat here where his beard plugs into the rest of his hairline. Just pull it down and then blend it right along the hat line here. Something like that. I don't want to move too far down, right? Because the subject has a lot of light hitting his forehead, so I don't want to lower that value too much. I want to keep it tucked in right on the edge of that hat. Okay. So now what I can do is now I can go in with my Mono Zero eraser, and I can retrieve some of those high values that we see. If you actually look at the reference photo right here, he does have a couple different spots that are of a higher value. And so we're just kind of bringing those out. And then if the Mono Zero eraser simply isn't cutting it, what you can do is you can go in with an electric eraser. And the electric erasers are a lot of fun. You know, they are a power tool. And we can go in and we're actually going to retrieve some of these white hairs that the reference photo has in his chin. But one of the things that I love about the electric eraser is that it allows me to really retrieve high values quickly. You do need to be careful with it, right? Because it does spin clockwise. So when you're hitting the paper, just make sure you have a firm grip of it and just nice and light and more or less tap it. The first time you use one of these, it might try to skip off the paper and run away from you. So just be aware. I will tell you this. When the time comes when you're actually very confident with it and you've used it a couple times, it's amazing. I mean, there's a reason why power tools are power tools, and it's because they just allow you to move so much faster. And if you don't have one, definitely get one. I'll have Amazon referral links to all the tools that I have in this tutorial in the description of this video for you. So if you want one, it's just a click away. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I want to vary up some of this value that we have here, right? And like I was saying before, I'm pulling my Mono Zero eraser and I'm pulling it in the same direction of that underlying form because I want to accentuate the form, right? I don't want to get rid of it. I want to bring it out. I want to encourage it to the surface. Okay. Nice and light. So now what we're going to do is I'm just going to hit this hat real quick. I'm doing the exact same motion over and over again, and I'm blending the hat. And I'm blending it a little bit more towards the bottom. If you look at the reference photo, towards the bottom has a lot more of a blend than any other part of the hat. And then I'm also pulling it left to right, top to bottom, because I'm going to do this now. I'm going to clean it up with a Pentel click eraser. I'm just cleaning around the edges and stuff. One of the reasons why I have my Pentel click eraser is for charcoal that, bad charcoal, right? Charcoal that gets away from me, so I don't smear it with my hand on accident. But now I'm going to take this electric eraser and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to start placing high value spots just like this. Just zip, 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 zip. Just zip, 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 just over and over and over again, okay? I'm not going to spend too much time on the hat just because I really want to spend more time on the actual subject's face, right? And show you all the tricks to really get that to blend real nice. But I do want to show you how easy it is to really start to manipulate the charcoal when it comes to the garments of the subject. So this is one of those things where I could have done an entire video on just the hat, right? If I really wanted to get in there and I really wanted to bring out the detail and show you this, that, and the other, as far as the tricks that you could use to get that hat to do what you want. But this is kind of the short of it, right? What I'm doing is you can see the stitching, right? There's different stitching in this hat. And this is one of the ways that you can go in and you can start to add detail, right? Just like this. This right here, same principle applies, right? You just want to be very, very wary of the flow of the stitching, kind of like how you always want to be aware of that underlying form when it comes to a subject's actual face. It's the exact same thing here, right? Every stitch has its own direction, its own flow. So just pay attention to that, okay? Exactly how that flows and where your high values are. And then of course you can offset them with your midtones and your lower values as well. Zip, 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 zip. That's pretty much that. And then once we're done with our high value retrievals, I'm going to take my brush here and I'm just going to lightly blend this. And this is accomplishing a couple things, right? It's giving us a very, very light bit of gradation. And then of course it's getting all the eraser gunk off of the paper. That is the one thing about the electric erasers, is they do throw a ton of used eraser bits all over the place. So now I'm going to take a smudger and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to blend this. And notice how the turtleneck kind of flows up, kind of curls at the top. When you're pulling your charcoal, make sure that you pull it in that same direction, right? Same thing as underlying form with the muscles and the hat. Just pull that charcoal in the direction that feels and looks right to you. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now, let's get serious. Let's get serious. Just gonna take my soft charcoal, which throws the lowest value because it's pure charcoal. It has hardly any binder in it. So I'm just gonna blend this. And if you have this excess of charcoal here on the paper, don't worry about that. Just pretty much punch in the charcoal that you want. Right, just like this. Nice and light. And then you can pull down as well, right? Because all this is doing is effectively blending between those different values, right? It's giving you that nice soft gradation that we want. Okay, when you're done, just like that, just blow it off. No big deal. And then of course we've got a nice blend here underneath the chin, where there's hardly any light. It's a nice blend. I mean, and this is the real magic of brushes, right? In fact, my single favorite tool in my entire arsenal with this method, with charcoal, is the brush. Brushes are just pure magic. They're intimidating, especially if you've never wielded one, in action, but just like anything, you start to do it more and more and more, and you'll wonder how you ever drew without one. Seriously. Okay, so we are nearing the end of this one. We've got about 5 minutes left. So what we're going to be doing is I'm just going to be going through and just doing subtle little details here, subtle little details there. Okay. Remember, when it comes to this method, the more time you spend on your charcoal, just rendering that subject down more and more and more, the more accurate it will look, right? I've had drawings of portraits that I have done in my career where I spent days worth of actual drawing time in the chair for my clients. So it's really up to you as far as how refined do you want that drawing to be. I will say that brushes just like this, they go a long way to blending the charcoal and really allowing you to have a smooth and very radiant gradation across your entire drawing. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in some details. We got a mole here and a little bit of an eyelash right there. Okay, a little mole right there. And the details are really what sell it for your viewer. And you can detail as much as you want. I would say that when it comes to drawings, if you're going to put extra effort into any part of a portrait, have it be the eyes, and have it be the mouth, and have it be the nose, all right? The facial features. I mean, because most people, they're going to be looking at the face, right? Clothes, sure, absolutely. But I always thought that a good charcoal portrait, the magic was in the face and especially the eyes, right? Because that is the window into the subject's soul. Okay. And then here I don't like this little bit, so I'm just going to throw a little bit more charcoal and kind of blend this. He had a hole in his neck, so he doesn't have that anymore. Very nice. Very nice. But this is just a testament to the fact that you really can use the Loomis method to draw portraits. And, and you can use brushes and different grades of charcoal, and you can have a lot of fun while you do it too. That's the big thing. Right here on the temple, I'm just going to kind of blend this a little bit, kind of lower the value. Notice how the value just gets lower and lower. And that's what I meant by just, go nice and light, because you can always add more charcoal, right? You can always continue to blend charcoal and make it softer, make that value a little bit lower. When you go in hot and heavy, and you're like, oh, whoops, I kind of back myself into a corner here. I need to retrieve some of this charcoal. That is when it can get complex and dicey for you. So nice and light. Again, you can always add more charcoal. And here it's got some eyelashes, so I'm just kind of bringing these out. More or less just doing detail work. Okay. But I hope now, with this tutorial, that you have really started to kind of grasp the three-layered method and the concept of exactly how we go about blending charcoal, right? Smudgers are huge. They're almost as big as brushes. And then, of course, retrieving those high values. It's the refinement of charcoal that's hard, because that is where all the steps come in, right? Because most people, they just, especially traditional charcoal artists, beautiful work, but this is not traditional. Like I said, the three-layered method is very new age. This is a new way to do it. And I think it is a fun way, right? I think it's a very fun way to do it. And then just like this here, you can kind of go in and you can lighten this up and you can lighten that up, and like here you could kind of retrieve this high value. And then of course, if it's too abrupt, brushes, right? Take a brush, blend it real nice, just like this, and off you go. All right, so like I mentioned before, Skillshare is where all of my premium content lays. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I'm going to be uploading tons of classes that are just like this, so link to my Skillshare sign up is in the description below. Also, I'm now offering one-on-one Zoom calls for drawing consultations. So Patreon link in the description. Stay happy, stay healthy, and remember, never stop drawing.